If we're going to have a foreign policy, it's got to be based on democratic values. Respect for Canadians when they go overseas, respect for what they're trying to do, not trying to muzzle people, shut people down. Let some flowers bloom here. Let democracy breathe. Let it live. If you're going to promote it abroad, as we should, you've got to respect it at home. Let some flowers bloom here. Flowers bloom. Let some flowers bloom here.
About Iggy's Little Red Book, that's what the lead editorial in Sun Media is called, and you are the lead editor-in-chief. So you're saying that in an attempt to wax poetically about democracy, the visiting professor, and then you put the little TM there, trademark.
There, you notice that.
Honoring the law and honoring me, I guess. Micheal Ignatieff decides it is wise in the leadership debate to paraphrase the most famous quote by Mao Zedong. Now, I've got to tell you, it's been less than 24 hours for me. I still have a hard time believing that this wordsmith, who clearly rehearsed this phrase in advance and must have vetted it with some people, that he actually didn't have someone in his life saying, no, the last thing you need, someone like yourself who's been portrayed as an alien, as a Martian visiting professor, the last thing you need is to import Chinese communist propaganda.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to fathom that someone didn't say that to him. And it's hard to fathom that he did not know the source of that quote, where it originated, because he has, like I said, he's internationally renowned academic. He's been a professor. He's been on the BBC as a debater. He knows Trotsky when he quotes Trotsky. He knows that Churchill is not Chamberlain when he quotes Churchill. And he should know that when he uses, the flower blooms, it's one of the most infamous quotes of Mao Zedong. It was 100 flower blooms. It's often misquoted as being 1,000, but it was actually 100 in the reality quote. But you can't. It's hard to believe that he did not.
Let some flowers bloom here. Flowers. Some flowers bloom here.
Have someone tap on the shoulder and say, "Don't be a fool." Like he would be tapping the shoulder if he said, for example, that we have to make a final solution of this Harper government.
Bono, I just need to take a quick break here. Can you just hang on? I want to discuss this.
Absolutely.
I want to discuss what he did last night, and I want to discuss why it is that some left-wing intellectuals still continue to carry water for Mao Zedong. It's unbelievable. He only killed 65 million. I don't know what it would take some left-wing intellectuals to stop hero worshipping Chairman Mao.
Some flowers bloom here. Some flowers bloom here. Some flowers bloom here.
Look, here's a question I've got for you. There's no doubt when people hear that Micheal Ignatieff was using the Mao Zedong line about the blooming flowers, there's no doubt that some people say, "Oh, well, wait a minute. You guys, you're not comparing Micheal Ignatieff to Mao Zedong, because if you are, then you've really lost your mooring." So what is it about this that really troubles you, Bono? And is it, I'll just be devil's advocate, do you think that Micheal Ignatieff is a mass murderer wannabe?
Well, absolutely not. But, what it jumped out at me, the fact that he actually used it. I'm sitting there listening to it, and he's droning on, and all of a sudden this, the flowers bloom comes up, and I'm thinking, my God, what possessed him to all of a sudden channel Chairman Mao into a speech about democracy? I just found it totally out of context of what he was trying to put across, and wonder why an intellectual such as himself, a man with such a huge academic CV, would not know what he was doing, or that someone wouldn't have stopped him. Because as you said earlier, Charles, he had his notes. He had been prepped, and you saw him a couple of times during that debate trying to get in when the opportunity had passed him by, trying to pull back the carpet so he could get back to where they were, so he could put in one of his alleged zingers. And so he was, you could see his mind turning, trying to get this done, and then he comes up with something that obviously was scripted. It wasn't.
Well, maybe Donolo said, "Hey, this will give you a defining moment if you do this right." I mean, let's face it worked for Mao Zedong. He used it just before he put the sword through millions of his opponents, and maybe Donolo thought that maybe people will forget where this comes from, but it's a great line, and it kind of worked for the chairman. And maybe you can put the sword through Harper by using it.
Well, obviously that was if it was an intentional line, I mean, obviously that's what the intention was. I mean, but you know, he started. I mean, he really was waxing poetically here, and it wasn't something that it just sort of popped into his head. You know,
I tell you what,
let some flowers bloom here.
I'll tell you what I loved about it. He was so proud. I mean, he clearly rehearsed it. He owned those words, and he really thought, because he was looking for the home run, he was looking to complete the Hail Mary, he was looking for the knockout punch, and all those other ridiculous cliches that have been used. So I think he thought in that moment that he did have his defining moment. I think he had the payoff.
Because, you know, he said, let some flowers bloom here. Let democracy breathe. Let it live. I mean, it's very poetic. But it's Mao.
Yeah, it's not Robert Burns, is it?
No.
It's not Shakespeare.
It's not Churchill.
Thanks, Bono.
You're welcome.
Mark Bonikowski.
Giving new meaning to the term conscientious objector. You're listening to the Boss of Talk, Charles Adler, on the Superstation.
Some flowers bloom here. Some flowers bloom here. Some flowers bloom here.
This is Charles Adler.
Can you imagine what would have happened last night if Stephen Harper had been stupid enough to use Mao Zedong language to promote democracy? CBC would have had a massive orgasm.
Stirring the pot. This is Charles Adler.
The Rod